Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Becca. I'm currently working on my, what I hope will be, debut traditionally published novel titled Project Eden. It is what I have been softly pitching as a 90s East Coast autumn ghost story. And if you are not new, hi, thank you for listening to that spiel for like the millionth time. You are a real one. If you clicked on this video, because I am aware of what the title is, and you just listened to me spiel about the project that I'm currently working on, you might be thinking, Becca, what the hell do you mean that you're going to start a new project? To which I would say, fair question. For those of you that don't know, if you were not here in April, which also shout out to all of you lovely people that joined the channel in April. We had a huge growth spurt. Thank you. In April, I challenged myself to add an additional 30,000 words to the second draft of Project Eden, which was already about 30,000 words in. I not only managed to hit that goal, but I actually exceeded it a little bit. I will put the final number of words drafted in April somewhere on the screen. And we actually managed to hit that goal like a week early, which was incredible. And I decided that instead of pushing myself to write more, because I do have a deadline in mid-May for this draft, that I would just give myself a little bit of a break, focus on some content stuff, and also focus on this story that's kind of been itching at the back of my brain. So yes, this is going to be a very, very quick introduction to Project Blue. Let's start with, what even is this project? How did it come to me? Why do I want to pursue it? What is the source of inspiration? And I've talked about this a little bit throughout my videos and on some live streams about the fact that the magical girl genre shaped me fundamentally growing up. I grew up watching Tokyo Mew Mew, Sailor Moon, Winx Club, Witch. There's just like so many different influences that I loved growing up as a kid. And I always thought, like, now that I'm a 30-year-old woman and I still love that genre, I'm like, you know, a lot of those, almost all of those protagonists are like 14-year-old girls. They're in school. Like, it's a very young audience, so they are very young heroes. And I started thinking about the fact that a lot of the subject matter for magical girl stories is actually quite intense and quite gritty and quite deep. And I'm like, I would love to explore that a little bit further. I think there are some really interesting themes here that maybe could be a little bit more prevalent than they already are in some of the media. The real ethos and I think central question for this project is about asking, how great could we be if we cared about ourselves, about other people, about what we do and how we do it. I really started to play around with the idea of fashion as a tool for propaganda, as a tool for self-expression, liberation, identity, communication, how it reflects the current political environments, because I'm seeing a lot of that right now in this current political climate. And I really wanted it to serve as this sort of exploration between like feminine relationships, whether they be friendships or they be like familial relationships, matriarchies, whether they be romantic relationships. I just felt like I've always wanted to do a story of female exploration of the feminine experience. And I thought, what a really cool way to do it with this genre and tackle some of the things that I think I haven't been able to tackle with Eden because it's a completely different story, right? My goal for this would ideally to have it be a duology. I've already kind of started maladaptive daydreaming some scenes that I would love to include. And some tentative comp titles that I've kind of started pulling for this are kind of like Sailor Moon, Arcane, Akira. That sounds kind of intense, and that's because I think it's going to be. In terms of like tropes or genre or anything like that, I really don't know where it's gonna fall. I kind of hate putting that on a story this early on. I really just want to give it room to breathe. So in this video, we're gonna do a little bit of creative brainstorming for this project. I would love to create the mood board for this project, start thinking through a little bit of like the premise, the characters, a little bit of the conflict, the heroes, the villains, the story arcs. I do also already have a playlist for you guys and for me, and I will kind of flip through that. Maybe I'll throw it up here. I'll throw it up here. You guys can kind of get a sense for the kind of story that I'm putting together. It is so completely different from Eden in, I think, such a wonderful way, like a very exciting way. This project is definitely going to be a little bit more of an exploration of systems of oppression, propaganda, as I said earlier, relationships, things like that, big battles, really hot girls in really cool outfits. In addition to mood boarding and in addition to kind of carving out, I think, some of the bigger pieces of the story, I would also love to share with you guys how I set up my scrivener. This is a question that's been asked of me quite a bit, and I love playing around with my scrivener. There is also so much I still don't know about that program. I do want to take a minute to shout out my really good friend here on AuthorTube. Her name is Dr. Andrea Severson. She is an indie author, and she recently did an incredible video talking about all of the different things that I did not know Scrivener could do. So if you use the software or you've just started using it, I highly recommend checking out her video because I learned so much. So without further ado, let's head over to my desktop. I will show you guys some of the stuff that I already have pinned, and we will put together a mood board for Project Blue. Okay, so I've moved you over to like my desk tripod and I've closed the blinds because it is way too bright outside. This is the Project Blue Pinterest board. I have been slowly adding to this board little by little, probably since January. So I have about 100 plus pins. And when I go through the process of mood boarding, I'm gonna just like start scrolling so you guys can see everything that I have saved while I talk. My process with mood boarding, I try to save quotes, obviously. Even if something is not exactly the exact vibe, I will still save it if there's an element of it that I think resonates with my story. As you can see here, I think my magical girls will be very much so. I love the night motif. I love the idea of them having armor that's actually serves a purpose. I am thinking of having the story take place in Chicago, actually. So I started saving a couple pictures of Chicago in the springtime. Don't know if anybody else does this, but I tend to associate a specific season with a book. I don't know why, but that's kind of like where my brain starts. So have a lot of pictures of Chicago here, different areas, locales, things that I think make sense. And here we have some more armor, some very pretty, beautiful artwork. Shoes are a very big motif in this story. So I have a few shoe pictures here. I have some memes. This is kind of just like the general gist and vibe of the story, but just to kind of get a sense of who some of these characters might be or look like. Again, fashion is a huge source of inspiration for this book, so I'm trying to expand my horizons there, learn a little bit more about the history of fashion. This is the general vibe of the mood board. Now, when it also comes to mood boarding, in addition to obviously what some of the characters might look like, the setting, quotes, and things like that, I also really like to think of the texture of the story, which I know sounds really weird, but that's what some of these pins, like the water, this sort of fabric, this sort of water, these like almost glass looking tulips. And this is very intentional because it helps me create a lot of the imagery and I think the feeling that I want to evoke with the story. I think about how I want it to juxtapose to some of the themes that I'm tackling. I want it to serve multiple purposes. So I'm very happy with everything that I have pinned so far. So I'm just gonna go through and download a few of the pictures that I think will be best on the mood board. Okay, now that I have all of the images that I want uploaded into Canva, I'm literally just gonna start dumping everything in. And this is a lot. I might not need all of this, but I wanna try and fit it in. Okay, I usually try to keep key things the biggest. Right now I'm just making everything tiny so that I can figure out what exactly I'll have here. Ooh, I like that. See, I want to play around a little bit with like removing the backgrounds on some of these and just having them be like a standalone element. Love this. Wow, okay, I have a lot. This might definitely be way too much. As you guys are seeing some of the photos that I have, would love to know what you're thinking so far. I think the concept for this is pretty cool, but also this is what I'm thinking for my villain, my villainess. I do also want to say, so I got the idea for this story in January. Ooh, hid that. But I do also have to say that very recently, my husband has been walking me through the lore for the Power Rangers, which, let's be real, is basically just Sailor Moon for guys. I will not elaborate. And that has also served as a really big source of inspiration, particularly in terms of the antagonists. I cannot remember their names, forgive me, but I do remember something about like there being like a husband and wife villain duo, which I love. I recently read Realm Breaker recently. That was last year. What am I talking about? When I read Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard, the antagonists were like this newly married couple, and I just thought that was so cool. Okay, so these are all of the pictures that I have. Let me try to rearrange this in a way that makes more sense than what it does right now. Projects like this, things like this, are why I have Canva Premium, in addition to making thumbnails for YouTube. But I really just love a good mood board, you know what I mean? See, like I really like removing the background for that to have it more as like a standalone. And I really love, I think colors too play a really big part in setting the tone and feel of a story, even if it's a book. I really do believe that. I also visually try to balance a lot of the colors going on. As you can see, there's a little bit of a theme here between like pinks and blues and some oranges. And I really like that. It almost feels a little bit like things are on fire, but like in a pretty way, you know, in a very pink way. Part of this story, actually probably a large part of this story, is a certain level of camp. And I really love the idea of like having one of them be like a pop star, like my core group of girls. Like I really want them to have just like the most varied and diverse, not only like racial and ethnic backgrounds, but in terms of careers as well. I think that would just be so fun to explore and to navigate. So we have kind of a similar vibe over here with our antagonist duo, and we have them over here as well. I just think they're really hot, so I want to highlight them. Love this. I feel like this really encapsulates my main character as well. This is another trick that I love. I will take these bits from Pinterest and then crop. Put them here. This sort of reminds me of like Sailor Moon's Compact, so I'm gonna add this. I think this is a really good start for the mood board. I really, really like the way that this is looking. I may pull just like a few more quotes to go along with it because I feel like it needs just a little bit more, but I am very happy with how this is looking so far. So now I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start working on some of the characters and arcs. I've moved over to my desk because I do actually need to focus to do this scrivener walkthrough. This is a brand spanking new blank document. I have my scrivener in dark mode, which is why all of this up here is going to be dark, but you can toggle your main editor to be light or dark, whatever you prefer. I just changed the whole thing, that's fine. The first thing that I love to do is when you have your mood board saved, I will come to, where is it? Project settings. You can come here. If you go here to background images and you go choose from disk, this is for composition mode, which I basically live in composition mode when I'm drafting. And you can put in your mood board. You hit OK. And then once you go into composition mode, the mood board will be in the background. Composition mode is everything to me. You can also move the page. I usually have it over here to the side, and then I will have my main inspector with like my chapter outline and notes over here to the side. Honestly, the mood board looks pretty sick. I'm very happy with that. Okay, next comes the scrivener document itself. Now I recommend, and we're gonna do this together actually, I have my Pinterest pulled up, but I really recommend having in mind a little bit of a colorway in mind when you're doing this. Again, you don't have to do this, but it is just like a really nice touch if you want to. So I actually really like these colors. Download this. And I'm gonna open it. And this is basically gonna serve as like our palette. So you're gonna go into Scrivener, you're gonna go, into settings. You're gonna go into your binders, where you wanna start, and then you're gonna go over here to colors. Obviously it's this maroon color, it has the colorway from Eden. I'm gonna move this over to the side. And then you can use the eyedropper tool to kind of pick and choose what colors from this picture you want to use for your project. So I really like this like purpley color, maybe even a little lighter. And there we go. And as you can see now, it's pink, purple over here. And you can do the same thing for your inspector, for your synopsis and your notes section. There is a way to do it in composition mode too. I haven't figured that out just yet. But if you go over here to your inspector and your notes background, you can also make it that same color. I also have this really pretty light purple that I like, so I'm gonna actually stick with that. You can also change it for things like index card, corkboard. Like there's so many different options to play around with here. You can also change on the binder if you wanna change the font. So I want to change this to regular, and then you can see over here it actually changed the font. So now every time you make a new document over here, the font will have that new funky font. For research, I know I'm going to want to make basically like a world Bible, like a world and story Bible. So this is probably where I'll dump all of like the early notes that I have that I just did. So we'll probably label this like early brainstorming. But then I also want to do a chapter outlines. I also want to do a beat sheet. And in here, I want to do an in-depth characters folder. I'll put this under here. Oh, and then we'll do world building and history. So we'll put that in here. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do this, not in research. We're gonna put you under here, and we're going to make this the Bible. So we're gonna put that in here. So now any sort of world building stuff that I do, especially for like the secondary world, like the history, all of that stuff is gonna go in the Bible folder after. I try not to put too much in folders because I will forget, but for the most part, this is what we're rocking with. For the draft itself, I'm going to do an Act 1, Act 2, and an Act 3 folder, and we'll just stick this one in Act 1. I didn't segment this with the first 2 drafts of Eden, but I am actually going to because I like seeing the story structure in the binder mode. In Scrivener as well, when I am drafting, I personally like to see the page view. So I will come over here and I will make a page view. As you can see, the Eden backdrop is in the back of this. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go to settings, appearance, in your main page view. I know what I'm doing. You're gonna go to texture and you're gonna, hopefully this works. Now we have our mood board as the background for our page view. I also always have my projects set up to be Times New Roman double spaced. That's just what I grew up writing. This is like my bare bones Scrivener like setup. This is what I do to just like get going. This time around, I do suspect that I'm going to be hanging out in the world story and Bible area a little bit longer than I did for Eden, which is great. That's my Scrivener setup. I really hope you guys enjoyed this like very chaotic brainstorming session for this project. To be completely honest, I wasn't totally anticipating doing this video, so I did kind of just go through, I think, the big 3 steps of my creative process when it comes to brainstorming a new project. But I do have really high hopes with this one. I think it's weird. I think it's different. I think that the people that get it will get it. And I'm really excited to just kind of live in it a little bit after, honestly, probably after I send Eden off to query. So I'll have something to like occupy my mind in January because I'm delusional and I think I can get this book ready in time for that. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, go ahead and leave a butterfly emoji. Also, feel free to leave in the comment section down below, how do you brainstorm new projects? What are your guys' source of inspiration? Music and art are 2 huge sources of inspiration for me personally, so I'm always listening to like song lyrics to see where I can get some inspiration. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'm rooting for you. Bye.